Thank you so much. Thank you for being here. There are three things that I want to do, two things that I have to do. First is I need to do a selfie. So on the count of three, smile. 1, 2, 3. We're going to get it over here. 1, 2, 3. We're going to come over here. On 3, 3. And over here, 3. That's awesome. The other part is sometimes it's just standing still and taking it all in. Oftentimes as educators, we jump right to it, and we never get the opportunity just to stand still and take it in. So at this point, I just want to just take it in. I'm looking at the beautiful faces here, the wonderful educators, the individuals who serve our district tirelessly, day in, day out, sunrise to sunset, and sometimes and beyond. I want to first start off by saying thank you. I want to say thank you first to the school board for the job that you're doing. I want to say thank you to the elected officials. I want to thank you for just allowing me to be here to serve as your official superintendent. Licenses are in place. I'm your... So I'm here. I'm here. So a little bit about me as an introduction. You've read all the other things on the bio, those things. Those are all good and those will come into practice. But the things that you don't know are the things that I'm going to share with, some of the things I'm going to share with you today. And it first starts off with, I bet you didn't know that I had 2 older sisters. I'm the youngest, an only boy. And believe me, I worked that system, and I still work that system today. And my sisters understand the system, and we get along. I have a sister that's 5 years older than me and one that's 8 years older than me. So, since when I was in 4th grade, my older sister was graduating from high school, so I got one out of the house. And then, when I was in 7th grade, the other was graduating, so I got the other one out of the house, so voila, I was an only child. So, in that, but we have a great relationship, so I understand. And one of the things, the reason why I was telling you that is just this. As a youngest child, you learn from others' mistakes. And so I don't have to do what they do to say, oh, try it out, because I learned from them. So I didn't have to go and miss curfew because I knew what happened if you miss curfew. If my parents told me not to drive somewhere, I didn't go there because I knew what happened. I knew if you went over 65, my dad called you, he'd take the keys and sell the car. My oldest sister found that out the hard way. I understood that. I understood if you went down the highway and your middle sister was hanging out the window waving at everyone and your aunt passed by and saw them and called your mom, they parked the car for 2 weeks. I understood those things. Needless to say, I was in the back seat also. But, hey, I was the youngest child, hey. So, but one of the things that I did enjoy growing up are those things and just learning the value of a family. My mom and dad reared me. My dad was a long-distance truck driver with CDL license, so of course you can understand why I had CDL. It was a trade-off because just as Jen said, when I told my parents I wanted to be a teacher, my dad said, why? Why? There's so much money to be made, you can drive a truck. Why not be a truck driver? And then he told me I didn't want to get my hands dirty, all these other things. So he went into a tirade because I told him I didn't want to be a truck driver. I wanted to teach. And so I understand that. However, what I also understand is the purpose of providing for a family. And those are the things that my dad instilled in me. And my mom provided for us that loving, nurturing care. So I understand the balance of a family. So I will always be the one that says family comes first. The moment that you forget that family doesn't come first is the moment that you don't. Yes. Family always comes first. And I heard that once from one of my mentors as a young administrator who told me, he said, Charles, you know, you work and you work in, you come and you do this work. He said, but you know what? I'm not going to be the one here for you. when you get sick and you need a Tylenol. You're sick and you can't move your head, you can't get out the bed. I'm not going to be the one that brings that glass of water to you. He said, that's not my purpose. He said, so make sure that you take care of your family. So, Kansas City Public Schools, I'm going to take care of you. We're going to take care of one another. One of the things that I want you to understand about me is just this. Neither of my parents got a formal education, but they graduated from high school. And during the 60s, that was good. That was the requirement. They graduated and they made a life for themselves and graduated and lived in an urban city and moved out to what would be considered the suburbs. We still called it the country. The new term was, the suburbs, to make a better life for their children. So every parent wanted something better for them. And so what we're going to talk about a little bit today is, how do we get there? And so in there, my dad was, I would think, he would have probably been a teacher. Although he says he wouldn't have been, but he's a great teacher. My mom, probably a guidance counselor. Because what I often tell her is, Mom, we're going to talk today, but you're not going to hold my ear hostage on the telephone. And so her words, oh, shut up, boy. But one of the things that I know is that my mom has a way of talking to you that just kind of gets you through it. And so my dad has the patience of getting in the car, and he is, the daredevil. So what did my dad do? He put us all in the car, my sister, my oldest sister, my middle sister, and myself, well before it was time for us to drive. And we were driving. So one of the things I do want to ask you, how many of you ever had a first at anything? Just raise a hand. A first at anything. Some of you may have just dropped into place, and I understand that. So as you know, I don't need to tell you, this is my first superintendency. However, I was trained before I got here, so I'm going to tell you how I was trained to get here. One of the major things that we're going to talk about this school year is moving forward with a sense of urgency. And so one of the things that my dad would do to us is show us how to be, or show me, because I was the only boy, how to take care of the people in the neighborhood. So he would work, and on usually Saturdays or Fridays or Saturdays, he would come in, because he was a long-distance truck driver, so he would drive out of state. And he would say, it's time to go cut wood. I didn't like to cut wood. I'll just be honest. No, I never held a chainsaw, never swung the axe, but the wood splitter, yes, push it, because I've always been a little guy. Around about 6, 7, he had me out there with him explaining to me why it was important for us to take care of the older individuals in the neighborhood. And my question back, because I'm good at asking questions, why aren't there children out here? He said, I can't answer that, and it doesn't even matter. You're here. And so I think of that as a teacher. Sometimes we do ask, why aren't there parents here? I don't know. But what are we supposed to do? We're supposed to teach them while we have them. And so as we progressed, I would always ask that same question every Saturday. We'd go out, and he would say, okay, I don't know why their children aren't here. I don't know why their sons aren't here, but you're here. I'm here, and we're going to get this done. So my job was, one, after he would cut the tree down, he would saw it up, I would have to stack that tree on the back of the truck, and it had to be extremely neat. So he wanted rows, not just throw it on like I just really wanted to throw it up there. But it had to be neatly in rows and columns, teaching me math well before, because he said you can get more on there if you put it in rows and columns versus throwing it on there. So I need to do that math equation for you. What I do want you to know is the key of getting me out there was he would give me the keys to the truck. And so we would be out in the woods on this acreage, and after he would cut the wood or cut the tree down, he would toss me the keys and say, go get the truck. And so the truck would probably be from the stage to the door. And at that time, he had like a 1966 Chevrolet pickup truck. Caveat to it was a manual shift. Not in the floor, but on the column. Ah. Pull it in, first is down, first gear, up is second, let out on his was third, and then pull it down for fourth. And there you go. You pull it all the way in and push it up, that would put you in reverse. How do I remember that? He was a great teacher. So, he taught me how to do this by one, he would let me slide all the way, because you know those old trucks, they had that long seat? And so I would slide beside him as we would be driving. He would let me first change the gears. He would do the clutch and the brakes, all that stuff, and I would just change the gears. Of course, this is back in the mid-'80s, early '80s. Then he would sometimes let me sit on his lap. He was preparing me to do this. Then he would let me do it all, except for the gas, the brakes, because I couldn't reach them because his seat was back too far. So then he would allow me to drive on his lap, gears, do all of that good stuff. But however, when I would go out to cut wood with him, toss me the keys and say, bring the truck to me. Now you're probably trying to figure out where we're going with this, but there's a teaching and a leadership role that's going to unfold in this story. So what would happen is I would go, get the keys, excited, and it's almost like you could not stop the grin, the laughter, your cheeks were hurting because I am about 10 years old, I have the keys to the car, and it may be I'm only going probably about 50 feet, but to me that was like driving on the highway. It was just me and that car and my dad behind a tree. So what I would do is go in and I would sit in the seat. Now one of the things that would work or would not work for me is my dad was about 6'1", or is about 6'1". I'm about 10 years old at that time. I'm still not 6'1", 5'11", and on a good day 5'11 and a half. However, at 10 years old, my legs wouldn't touch it. So what would I have to do? The same vehicle that we drove there was that same vehicle. I would just have to make modifications. So I would go around, get out of the car, get out of the truck, pull the seat up on one side, push it forward, then I have to run around the side of the truck, push the other side because I wasn't strong enough to push it all the way across, and then push it up. My dad was like, come on, and he would be motioning for me, but I was having to get the seat, all the things ready for me to move this vehicle. So what I would then do is, if you know anything about that 1966 truck, the clutch was extremely hard to push in. And so I would have to push the clutch in by grabbing the steering wheel and pulling forward because I had to make some modifications. And then I'd start it. What I knew is I needed to pull the gear shift to me and then down for first. However, if anyone knows anything about a manual shift, once you get out of first gear, you're good. Yeah, if you get out of first gear, you can do it. It's just getting out of first gear. I did know that I could give it a lot of gas and put it in second gear and we would just gas it all the way through. He wouldn't allow me to do that because what he would say is, you're burning up my gas, you're burning up my gas, or you're burning up my clutch, which wasn't going to work. So I would start, and this is what it would look like. Now, I knew how to do it because he was always doing it, and I didn't know how hard it was to move that clutch and give it just enough friction and enough gas to get it to go. But what was happening to me is I was in the driver's seat by myself, and he was just watching, letting him know that I could do it. He had trained me to do it. And eventually, he would tell me as I would stop and I'd push the clutch in because I was thinking it was going to turn off, and he'd just say, give it some gas, give it some gas, meaning give it a little more, just give it a little more, it'll go, just give it a little gas. I'd push the clutch in, and what would it do? The RPM would go up. And then he would say, let the clutch out, so I'd let it out, and then what would I do? This. So to make a long story short, eventually I would get it to my dad, but I want you to go back with me as I've talked with you about that and how we move forward. There's not going to be a lot of changes. The same vehicle is education. But I will have to move the seat to make sure that my legs are long enough to fit the gas, the brake, and the clutch. But we're still going to get there. I need you to understand that education is education regardless. So put your mind at ease. I taught elementary school. I know what it's like. I understand middle school. I was in there. I taught high school. I taught teachers at the high school level, been at the college level, been there. I understand that. It's a little different once you sit in the seat and you're having to take it all in because you've been prepared for this and others are outside watching you, telling you, give it a little gas. No, step on the brakes, give it a little gas. But you've got to let others sometimes operate the manual shift. Because what happens is when everyone is telling you what happens, we get false starts, we choke. Start off, we turn it off, and we turn back. And we're really good about that in education. If it doesn't work, we stop it. We don't always give things an opportunity to move. We don't. So what I'm asking you is this. I have the keys to the truck. I know how to drive a manual shift. I'm really good now. Really good. The clutch is not that hard. I understand how much gas to give you. I know how to pump you up. I know how to build relationships. I also know how to put the brakes on a little bit. I'm not going to slam on brakes. I usually ease on the brakes. I also know how to press the clutch in and when to press the clutch in because sometimes we can put it in neutral and just sit there and see how it's going to work. Because sometimes we have to let it warm up. You know, oftentimes we get in a leadership seat, and leadership isn't just about the district office. I do want you to understand that. Leadership and moving forward is within you. Success is within you. So I need for you to understand that, yes, I am the new superintendent. I am the superintendent. And what we do does affect what you do. But what I need for you to also understand is what you do does affect what I do. So if you don't do it with fidelity, then I'm thinking it's a false start. And we're doing this. And so then I do have to come out and see it. So all of those individuals who said, hey, come see me, I'm a traveling guy. I drive a manual shift, an automatic, and they even have these new cars where it's like the automatic and you can change it and so you can switch it and I can do both of those. And they have GPS, no longer using the map, so I can get to you. So beware, I will be at your school. I will be there and I guess I would have to, I don't want to drive a bus. I gave up those, I don't know what that would look like now, but I can do it. But one of the things that I have been grounded in is that there's no work that's too hard for me to do. I understand it. And I'll never be the one who says that let's just give that to that person just because. Because I grew up in the era of don't put something on someone else that you wouldn't do yourself. Yeah. What we have to understand is in the educational world, we do try things, but what I want us to bring to Kansas City Public Schools as a team is when we try it with fidelity. We've thought it out. We think about it. We try it out, and we give it the opportunity to work. And we call that measurement. And so we look and see, is it really working? And if it's not, then we come to that conclusion that this isn't working. But if it is working, what are they doing at this school to see what they're doing? Why is it that they're moving forward? What is it that they're doing to move forward? How do we do it? But one of the things that I need for you to understand is success only works when you give it an opportunity. And too many times, as educators, we don't give success an opportunity. A student walks in the door, and we already tell them they're not successful. One thing I would love for you to try this school year is every day that you walk into your building, your classroom, you get in your car, you're driving the bus, you're cooking the food, you're answering the telephones, say this to yourself, it's going to be a good day. It's going to be a good day. One of the things that you need to proclaim over yourself is that no one gets to determine what your day is going to be like but you. That's it. You put your success markers there. And so one of the things that we've talked about in the senior staff is just this. Everyone wants to know, what are your visions? And I don't know, what are the visions? What were we working on? Why do we need to change them? What we need to do is, what are the roles? What are the measurements? How are we going to get there? That's what I want to know. How are we going to get there? The vision is just it, but how are we going to get there? The vision is set, but the measure to get there comes in different forms. So as you're looking at success, make sure that you put out there for kids, colleagues, we can do this. We can do this. So moving forward with a sense of urgency, you can do this. And I know every day is not going to be a day where you can say, we can do this. You'll say, I don't want to do this. There are mornings, everything is, I don't want to do this. That child who has been on your last nerve and now he's stepping on it, and you're telling him, you don't want to do this. I understand. But what I do want you to understand is that you can do this. Because the moment that you stop believing that you can do it is the moment that we fail as a district. So I want you to understand that we, as a team, can do this. And you have colleagues that are in here with you who are coaching you from outside saying, come on, you got it. And sometimes it'll even be the students in front of you telling you, come on, that was good. Why didn't you teach that lesson like that before? It's like, oh, wow. Well, then you're like, well, maybe I can. Because remember, you get to determine the success factor. Don't allow others to tell you what your students are going to look like at the end of the year. It's called growth. Now, one of the things that I will say is a student who walks in your classroom on Friday or Monday, they shouldn't look the same in May. That shouldn't happen. So set a standard. And there was a young lady who I was speaking with and she said, I'm going to hold you to high standards or excellence. And I told her, I said, that is just the standard. Excellence is the standard. Perfection is the goal. So that's what we need to undertake, we need to understand, we need to make sure that when we walk out of here, that we're feeling good about what we're going to do. You will have the next, and everyone always says it, that every profession comes through the schoolhouse. You put your hands, your mouth, your eyes on every profession. There are not many professions that actually do that. I don't think there's any other profession that actually does that. So hold your job to high regard, whether it is in the transportation, custodial, buildings, finance, teaching and learning, the classroom, and wherever it is, make sure that you are doing what's best always, and do it with a sense of urgency. I want to thank you for everything that you're doing for our kids. I want to thank you for all the things that you're going to do for our kids. I also want to thank you for having a good school year, because I'm already saying that we're going to have one. And I want to thank my wife for being here. I am Mary. Little in stature, but strong as a rock. I love it, I love it, I love it. I love education, and so you're going to always hear me talking about my passion in education. You're just going to hear me talk about it, my passion for education. And so that's all I'm trying to do is infect you with my infectious passion for education. So I end every meeting, go and do no harm. Enjoy your school year. Hold your heads up high. And remember, when you get in the car and start it up, what do you tell yourself? Today's going to be a good day. Thank you so much. Have a great one. Thank you. Thank you so much.